So it started out as your typical Friday in a relatively busy Walmart here in Texas. To give you some background about myself, I worked in loss prevention at Walmart for 7 years and was a loss prevention manager at this store when this particular incident took place. For those of you who don't know what loss prevention is, it's not those guys in uniforms driving around in the golf carts in the parking lot carrying a walkie-talkie. It's an extremely difficult job where we dress in plain clothes, acting like normal customers to catch shoplifters. My job as a loss prevention manager was to focus on employee theft and inventory control in the store. The store this incident took place in was a major city here in Texas that was close to downtown, in the middle of an old neighborhood that attracted all the riffraff and your basic druggies looking for some quick stuff to steal or sell. So like I said, it was a typical Friday in summer of 2009, and I was working in the stockroom doing audits on high-priced merchandise and talking to store management. There had been a few safety issues in the store, and I wanted to bring it up to them. I had just finished having a meeting with my loss prevention agents, and told them I would be in the store until around 8 or 9, finishing up the audits, and if they needed help stopping a shoplifter, to call me. Other than that, I was just going to try to finish my work as fast as possible and leave. The store was pretty busy as I walked into the stockroom and began my audit. I had just finished my first one, and was about to start my second, when I hear store management call me over the radio, asking me to come out to the front of the store. There was a customer screaming, and they needed help removing him from the store. We really weren't supposed to let the customers know who we were, since we were the loss prevention team, but I decided to walk up there and make sure everything was okay, and if they needed my help, I decided I would call the police. As soon as I walked out from the back of the store, I could hear some customers talking and looking towards the front. I figured it was just an unruly customer who wasn't getting what they wanted and had decided to raise hell until they got their money back. Walking through the clothing department, I could hear shouting and customers screaming, "Help me! Help me!" My walking pace had turned from a jog to a full sprint to get to the front of the store. When I finally reached it, near the registers, I encountered one of the craziest mind-blowing things I've seen in my 7 years of working at loss prevention. There's a man almost completely naked, wearing some very dirty boxer shorts. He's chasing customers and growling like a dog or some kind of wild animal, flipping over baskets and acting like he's possessed. By the time I get to the front, he's flipped over everything, and he's starting to knock merchandise off the shelf, all while acting like a rabid dog and foaming at the mouth. I approach the crowd of employees and customers, immediately telling everyone to get back for their own safety. At this point, he's worked his way into the optical department, and I started pulling glasses down from the displays and throwing them onto the floor, shattering them. I suddenly remember my agents didn't have their walkie-talkies on, and I was going to need help getting this guy under control. I grab my cell phone and hand it to the closest cashier, telling her to dial the phone number of one of my agents and get whoever answers the phone to come help and to bring the handcuffs. At this point, I'm thinking about safety, and I make sure that everyone's a safe distance away as I approach the crazy man from behind. I subdue him with a quick trip to the floor, holding him down until my agents finally arrive with handcuffs and the police. The crazy thing is, as I'm holding this guy down, waiting for help, he begins to lick my shoes in the floor, speaking incoherent gibberish, kicking and screaming. I look down at his feet and see they're raw from apparently running around the neighborhood barefoot and naked, chasing random people. After the police finally arrive and he's loaded up and taken away, the outside security hands me a pile of clothes that he had apparently left. There was a trail off the parking lot and in the shopping center next to the Walmart. After this incident, I spoke to the police officers that had showed up to help, and they told me some pretty scary stuff. They said he was on some type of drug like bath salts or meth, and it had made him completely lose his mind. He had been acting like a wild animal, chasing and attacking anyone he could get his hands on. They also told me that he screamed and howled the whole way to the police station, like a banshee, until they finally got there, and he vomited all over himself. It was approaching one of my niece's birthdays, and she's at the age where I think she would appreciate a gift from her uncle. I'm a poor college student with no car, so I commute everywhere and anywhere, knowing that I always take my backpack and headphones anytime I leave the house. So I'm at Walmart, and I have this care package planned out for my niece. She loves Elsa from Frozen, so I decided to get her a costume, maybe a doll and some candy, all Frozen themed of course. Like I mentioned earlier, any place I travel to, I usually have my headphones in. This is kind of a pain to explain, but this detail kind of defines the whole story. Now, I'm so lazy, I normally use a third-party music app instead of the music app included on my iPhone. Unfortunately for me, this requires a good internet connection, and living in rural parts of Denver, my music ends up cutting in and out and then stops playing altogether randomly. Now at this point, I have one item left on my list, and I'm in the toy section of Walmart, looking for an Elsa toy that my niece could take care of. Before I even know it, this mom comes and leaves her 2 children beside me. I'm not sure why, but this has happened before. Maybe I just have a trustworthy face. Let me tell you all something now. I'm not fucking stupid. There are so many strange things that happen in this world that I would have to be a fool to leave these 2 young children alone. And for the record, I didn't know these people at all. It's kind of a pain, but I figure that it's just me being a good person. I mean, I don't even know how some people can do this. And this is literally a woman leaving her 2 children at a section of the store and telling them to wait there for a while. Anyways, one girl is around 4 years old, and her little sister looks to be about 1 or 2. These girls are fucking sitting ducks here, man. The older sister had one missing crock, and her younger sister had pajamas on and a pacifier in her mouth. I felt even more obligated to stay until their mom came back. And it turns out, I was right. Not even 5 minutes had passed since their mom left, when some fool came up and started talking to the girls. This tool said all the same generic stuff any pedophile would say. I have lots of toys and candy in my car, and a dog too. I was just sitting there like, is this guy fucking serious? He probably thought I wasn't listening, because I had my headphones in. But like I said, my music had cut out some time ago. As soon as he mentioned his dog, I immediately made my way up to him. He was crouched down, talking to the girl about the stuffed animal she had in her hand. Hey, my dog is really big. He's not pink, but he's nice. Would you like to come and meet him? I crouched down and pushed the girl back a few steps. Immediately, the guy moved back a few steps himself. I extended my arm and made a gesture, saying, "Not today." I gave the guy a very harsh look, like I knew exactly what he was trying to do. I just stared at him very attentively. The guy was very short in stature, and had short, stringy hair with a tan pilot jacket. He was also wearing some very beat-up New Balance tennis shoes. For all intents and purposes, he looked very plain. At this point, I was about to pounce on him and hold him down. I'm not even a big guy myself. I just don't stand for any of this pedophile kidnapping bullshit. Before that could happen, though, he immediately got up, turned right, and ran out the garden exit. I waited with the little girl and her sister until their mom came back. I gave her the speech, "Yeah, you shouldn't leave your children here alone. Some guy was talking to the one-shoe one about some generic kidnap bullshit." Those were basically my exact words to her. I mean, there's no being soft about what had just happened. Anyways, I told her she might not be so lucky next time. The mom just shook her head up and down and swallowed any spit that was in her mouth with a very harsh gulp. I don't know if something bad would have happened, but if my music had not stopped playing, let's just say that neither of those girls was old enough to defend themselves. Hell, they could barely speak. I worked as a Walmart cashier for a little over a year. I quit in August of 2015, when I went away to college. As a cashier, you see a lot of people in a day, especially at Walmart, and after a while, you don't even see people's faces when you look at them. But there are some people that you see so often, you start to recognize and sometimes learn their names. And there was this one guy, always in the same Green Bay Packers hoodie and Chicago Cubs baseball cap, that would often seek out my line, no matter how long it was, just so that he could stare at me and rarely ever say a word. Whenever he did say anything to me, he would always lean across the register to get a closer look at my face. He always gave me a really bad vibe, but when I asked the other cashiers about him, they said that he had never been weird around them. One of the girls even said that he was a close family friend. After that, I sort of dropped the issue. One night, after I'd been there for about a year, I was working a 2 to 11 shift. Those shifts were always the worst because you would be there for 3, sometimes 4 front-end managers, CSM, but also because it takes the chunk out of the day where you can actually do anything. So I'm down on the self-checkout. It's about 10:15 and I'm counting the minutes until I could shut it down at 10 till 11. The creepy guy comes in the front door and makes a beeline for me at the self-checkout podium. When I see him come in, I instantly get nervous. He walks up and says,
"Can I still buy a phone card and electronics?"
I told him that I only worked as a cashier on the front end, so I didn't know anything about the electronics section, but he could go back and check. He seemed peeved by this answer, but he walked away without another word. About 10 minutes later, he comes up with a prepaid phone card and says there's no one at the register in electronics. I activate his card and hand it to him, telling him to have a good night, but he pushes the card back at me without saying a word. I say, "Is something wrong?" To which he replies,
"These minutes aren't on my phone yet, are they?"
I was confused by the statement because, of course they weren't. He had just bought the card. I shook my head and he waved the card in front of my face.
"Well, why the fuck are you just standing there? Reactivate my phone."
When he talked, he was so close to my face that I could smell his breath, and I was scared. I wanted to put in a call to a CSM so that someone would come down and help me. This is where I should probably mention that I'm about 5'3" tall, and he's closer to about 6'5". He's also very stocky, so he was towering over me, and the thought that he could easily overpower me crossed my mind. But I get so nervous whenever men yell or cuss at me, because my dad was never the type to yell or cuss. I took the card out of his hand, and he slammed his cell phone on the scanner. I was trying not to let him know that I was nervous, but inside I was terrified. I knew that I had never put minutes onto a prepaid phone before, but I don't dare tell him that, in fear of what he might do. So I read the directions and pick up his phone, dial the number, and as I'm putting in the card number, his phone runs out of minutes. I try to call back and get an error message. I'm at a loss, so I meekly hand him back his phone and say, "I'm sorry, something went wrong, I don't know what's happening." As soon as I say it, he takes his phone, opens it up, tries to dial someone, and when it doesn't work, he looks at me with furious eyes. He screams,
"What the fuck did you do to my phone? What the fuck?"
His voice is echoing all around the store, but unfortunately, we haven't got the end of second shift rush yet, so there's no one around. He closes his phone and opens it again, trying to make another call, but when it doesn't work, he throws his phone down on the scanner again. He says,
"I don't know what you did to my phone, but you better fucking fix it."
This comes much more quietly, practically a whisper. At this point, I'm worried he's gonna put his hands on me, and I don't know what to do. I put in a call for a CSM from my register, and then say, "I've called someone that might be able to help, but we're at a shift change right now, so it might be faster for you to take it to the customer service desk." He picks up his phone off the podium, still mumbling under his breath that I fucked it up, and I'm hoping I can get out of there before he comes back, or at least have someone else down at the self-check with me. Another 15 minutes go by, and I don't see him again. As I'm picking up the items that people left by the registers, getting ready to shut them down for the night, he comes back and stands by the podium. He looks completely pissed off, and my stomach sinks. He made that finger motion that means come here without saying anything, and for some reason, that made me even more nervous. When I'm standing right in front of him, he leans in so close to my face that I think he's about to kiss me or bite me or God knows what. I try to take a step back, but he takes a step forward when I do. A creepy grin comes across his face as he says,
"The girl up there fixed it. Simple fix. But next time, I expect you to know what to do. Understand?"
I nod because at this point I don't think I can speak. He gets impossibly closer before saying,
"I'm sorry I raised my voice. I never should have done that, especially to a pretty girl like you."
When he adds the last part, he lightly uses his fingertips to brush my bangs to the side. I took a step back, and he says,
"Let me make it up to you. Let me buy you a drink."
I shake my head and say, "No thank you, I'm only 19.
"So we'll get a couple of beers and go back to my place."
Again, I shake my head. "No, really, it's okay. I'm not really much of a drinker. I have an early morning tomorrow." He looks displeased with this answer and says,
"Tell you what, I'll wait over here by the door just in case you change your mind."
I smile at him weakly and tell him to have a good night. When I see him walk through the security things, I quickly shut down the registers and sign out of mine. Then I run over to find a CSM and tell them about the whole thing. The third shift CSM that I tell looks at me like I'm lying. When I'm finished, they say, "I know that guy. He wouldn't hurt a fly. He doesn't have it in him. You're just being overly dramatic." She then turns to another older cashier behind her, shakes her head, and mumbles, "Teenagers." I ask if I can have someone walk me to my car, and they tell me that management is in a meeting and the security guy went home already. So I clock out and went to the bathroom. I waited in the bathroom for about 10 minutes before coming out and attempting to go to my car. When I walked around the corner through the security things, he wasn't sitting on the bench right there like I had been expecting. I relaxed a little, before I realized he was standing just outside the door, far away enough to keep it from closing, and smoking a cigarette. He had his back turned to it though. Luckily, I never went out the front doors. I always went down the corridor and out the side door. I quietly closed the door behind me so maybe I wouldn't catch his attention. I rushed to my car, which was very fortunately close to the building. As I'm quick walking to my car, I hear him shout,
"Hey, why are you avoiding me? Come here."
At this point, I take off into a full sprint, which is not easy because I'm wearing Sperry's, so it's like running in clogs. I get to my car, get in, lock the doors as I'm starting it, and don't even bother with my seatbelt. By that point, he had made it almost all the way to my car, and was still yelling, telling me that he just wanted to talk. I took off as fast as I could, and took the longest way home with the most turns and twists possible. When I got home, I told my dad about the experience. and he was so angry that no one had answered my calls or believed me, he called the store manager the next day and complained. I was never contacted about his complaint, but from that night on, whenever I saw that guy, I would run to the bathroom, or if I couldn't get away, I would put out my lane closed sign and turn off my light so he couldn't get in my line. You always hear people talking about the people of Walmart as being trashy, but they never tell you that a select few are scary as hell. What's up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. The first Walmart Stories video was pretty fun to make, and a lot of people have been asking for more of them, so I finally decided to make another one. If you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a comment below, or perhaps like, share, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have a story you'd like me to read, or a personal story that you'd like to share, all of the links to my social media will be in the description below. That includes my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Feel free to send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to include your story in a video as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, whether it be your personal story or a fictional story that you've written, please include in the tagline of the email or message what the title of the story is, what kind of story it is, and if it has a theme, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video that the story appears in. If any of you are curious about the music used in this video, the music is always listed in the description. I list all of the tracks by name, in order of which they appear, with links to the artists. So if you're curious about the music, you can always find it down there. If you guys have any constructive criticism, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.